So around Easter, we get thinking thoughts about the Lord, and we're kind of, we're wondering, how do we get this life in us? How do we get this life more dominant? And it's important to ponder on the nature of Christ, the character of Christ, the attitude of Christ. The one we want to talk about today would be humility. I'm looking at James 4, verse 6. But he gives a greater grace. Therefore it says, God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. God is opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. We're in a spot where, as a human, we're always justified to be as mean as we want. We're pretty sure that we have a free license the moment that we're correct to no longer demonstrate humility. And, the greater the opponent is, or the more justified our cause, the more we don't need humility. But the truth is, humility is always in style. Humility is always in style. It is always a quality available to the saint, and it's necessary. There's a reality of a coming judgment. I believe we're in it, and the greater parts are imminent. But the primary reason you find, especially in the book of Isaiah, for judgment is pride. So pride is simply the self raised up. So that means that humility is the self lowered. When I'm right, myself gets into danger zone. I'm not saying I'm wrong, I'm saying I'm right. I get into danger zone when I'm right. Not because I'm uncorrectable or something, but because the moment I'm right, I shift into truth mode. Well, it's just true. And if it's true, it needs to be, said or pushed or forced or what have you. Being right is probably the most dangerous thing that you can have as far as humility goes. Being proud is when myself is very glad that I'm right. At this point, we can joke and say, yeah, but you could be wrong. But probably not, right? So when it comes to the judgment on the nations, you don't want to enter a judgment on a nation with pride. You don't want to have yourself raised up. You don't want to be right and righteously defending your nation. You don't want to be right and righteously defending your point in a season of judgment. You want to be humbly right. You want to be humble. And the way you do that is yourself can't be a factor in it. We get associated to our belief. We become invested in it. And of course we should be invested in our belief in the Lord, but there's just so many things we feel like we need to be right about. We get invested in that thing, and it's like it becomes a part of me. It's like it's an extension of who I am. And we can so associate ourselves with truths, God's truths, that association takes on our identity, and our identity gets blurred with those things that we believe are true and are true. And that's where the pride comes in, because myself got wrapped up in a truth. If we're honest, if we're humble, then our best stance is to have patient humility. To take the time to respond, to take the time to have an attitude that is humble. When a nation enters into a season of judgment, we have to understand that pride got us there, that our self-belief in the validation of our chosen stance, our righteous cause, our righteous beginnings, somehow validate us, who I am, and it gets intertwined again. The nations that are going to be judged are going to be judged because of sin, and the thing that's going to stop them from receiving the redemption that comes from judgment is pride. So humility is the measure of relief in a season of judgment. The portions of a nation that will walk in humility will see measures of relief about judgment, and the portions of a nation that will not humble themselves will see a measure of increased judgment. We just can't hold on to being right proudly. It's just dangerous. All of it's dangerous. Like the very character of the Lord, the very nature of the Lord is right. He's right. And look how patient he's been with us. Look how slow he's been with us. His ability to negotiate the human soul into his truth was awesome. It was incredible. We can learn from that. Within the church, you get to the book of Revelation with chapter 2 and 3, and there's the 7 churches getting their report card. And you can really see the effect of humility and pride. When you are in the Ephesus reading of Revelation 2, you see that they're doing everything great. So Revelation 2, I know your deeds, your toil and perseverance, that you cannot tolerate evil men. You put to test those who call themselves apostles and are not. You found them to be false. You have perseverance and endured for my name's sake and have not grown weary. They're doing everything right. They're doing a great job. But I have this against you, that you've left your first love. We are in danger when we're right about everything, and we're aware of it, and we believe it. We believe that we're right about everything. And it's a danger zone, because the Ephesus church departed from love in the midst of being right, which is a quote from 1 Corinthians 8. Knowledge puffs up, but love edifies, love builds up. It's not that we step down about being right. It's that what happens is I enter the danger zone of pride in being correct, and I have to be aware of it. We have to be aware of it. So the Lord can't stand pride. That's our verse we read at the beginning. God's opposed to the proud, but gives grace to the humble. God can't stand pride. He has to resist pride. He must actively resist pride. Pride is the Antichrist spirit. Pride is the Antichrist spirit. It's a king conflict. It's a question of who's on top, who's on first. And the Lord can suffer no rivals. He can't have anyone contesting his place as king. When you are a king and you don't deal with people who are raising themselves up in that same role and position, you have a divided kingdom, and it begets anarchy. So he's willing to use force. That's the judgment on the nations. But he's the humble king, riding in on a donkey. He would much rather people accept his kingship out of his character. Here we are, and when we are proud, James warns us, God has to be opposed to the proud. And the thing that you really need out of your relationship with God is grace. You really need it. You need the grace of God. If you don't have the grace of God, you're toast. So, who gets grace? The humble. You think about all the conversion stories, the genuine conversion stories, the revivalist conversion stories. There's great humility. People recognizing their role in opposing the Lord and getting him on the cross by their sin. And it's devastating them. And they're being corrected in their heart, and they believe it. They are humble. God gives grace to the humble. You're saved by grace. Yeah, because you got humble. You recognize you were a child of wrath. And in that humility, you got saved. The grace of God extended toward you. That same dynamic of grace is active throughout the life of the believer and into the eternal state. Without humility, the Lord cannot get a completed bridal vessel, because they have to be of his kind. They have to be of his kind. Baked into the nature of the bride is humility. Permeating. It's one of those qualities that must permeate everything, everywhere. And humility is evidenced, I'm going to use quietness. Humility can remain quiet. Humility doesn't have to beg its point. Humility doesn't have to argue out loud, outlandishly. It can validate truth. Humility can validate truth. The Lord validated truth. But when my mouth, myself, can't stop itself, I'm not operating in humility. I'm not. And so we can see how much or little humility is in the land by the lack of self-control in the human, even if they're right. God is going to be seen among his people again. He's going to be seen among his people again. God's going to get a people who can be trusted with his testimony. It's coming. A whole body of people trusted with the testimony of the Lord. And they're going to reveal him as he truly is, a lamb that was slain from the foundation of the earth. Would that God could be seen again among his people, because they're carrying one of his most eminent qualities, humility.